business owners, they don't have time. For them to be interested, that means they have a problem and they want to solve it. So how can you solve it for them?
Just straight up from Russell Brunson, the more you teach, the worse your sales are, right?
Mm-hmm. So that's the first step of the webinar game, getting people to show up, not just the registrations.
So you would close $5,000 or $6,000 deals
on the webinars.
On the webinar live.
Which is pre-recorded.
No! You just dropped the bomb. So we just finished the podcast here with Jackson Yu, and I have to tell you, this is one of the most tactical and informative podcasts that I've done. The reason why is because we have two people that are really intimately familiar with the process of growing and scaling your company, and I asked Jackson all the questions that I want to know as someone that's trying to scale my business using webinar on both Go High Level, internet marketing. So if you're someone that's trying to grow your business using webinars or grow your online business, this podcast is going to have tons of valuable information for you. Jackson Yu is an online internet entrepreneur that has recently won in the same year 2 Comma Club X Award and the Go High Level SaaSpreneur Diamond Award, which means he's gotten over 1,000 SaaS clients paying him every single month to be on his software. And he scaled it using webinars. So in this episode, we go really deep into webinars. We go deep into scaling an online software company. And there's tons of really, really great information. So make sure you pay attention. Make sure you also interact, like, and comment, and get involved and interact with Jackson as well. Okay, so stay tuned. This podcast is going to be great. Jackson Yu, like and subscribe, follow him, all that kind of stuff. And here's the podcast. Welcome back to the A-Listers show, where we bring you movers and shakers, entrepreneurs, people doing interesting things. And today's guest is no different. I bring to you Jackson Yu. Came all the way over from Malaysia to visit us and receive some amazing awards. So we're going to find out about his marketing company and all the amazing things he's doing. Shaking up the marketing industry, actually, is winning award after award. 2 Comma Club X, he's going to be winning that tomorrow. He just got the SaaSpreneur Diamond Award, which means he has over 1,000 SaaS clients on Go High Level. To win both in 1 year is absolutely incredible. I'm super excited to find out more about Jackson and his business. Jackson, welcome to America.
That's a nice one. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm glad to be here.
Yeah,
right.
Awesome. Well, so let's just take a step back here and tell us, what kind of a business do you have? What do you do?
Okay. So I run a conversion design agency. So mainly things like funnels, landing pages. So that's like one of the main thing that we started off with. And along the way, we have our own like courses to teach other aspiring entrepreneurs how to be like me, basically. And then we launch our SaaS, high-level SaaS, to the local Malaysian market. Mm-hmm. So there's kind of the few businesses that I'm more involved with.
Yeah. Conversion design. I've never heard that before. Tell me more about that.
So it's kind of like something that I picked up when I was trying to pivot from just selling websites to local agencies. So, and I think this is a good time to be here because one of the guy that kind of like lead me all the way here is Russell Brunson. So reading his first book, .com Secrets, and then the Expert Secrets kind of like open up the pathway of like, we should not just be selling websites that just sits like an information page. So we should be doing something that helps businesses get results. So, and that leads to funnels. And so trying to stand out in that world, especially when I'm all the way in Malaysia, is tough. So I was trying here and there and trying to find like how can I penetrate, like how can I make more money basically, like all the way from Malaysia. So, and the one thing that I pick up is like a lot of my target audiences like coaches and consultants, and they're all in the States. And the one way that I figure out on how to kind of like differentiate myself is through design. So using like a bit more attractive design. Okay, so back in the days, ClickFunnels designs are ugly. Maybe now it still is, but So I decided to kind of like combine the stuff that I know, learned from the website world, and just put it together with the direct response world. So, and that's kind of like how I came up with the term of conversion design.
Okay.
It's probably not crowned by me, but that's kind of like what we do.
Awesome. So I want to go back for a second and talk about some of your accomplishments and what they truly mean, because I kind of breezed past them a little bit, and I don't think people really understand the gravity of what it is to actually accomplish some of those things. So, 2 Comma Club X and SaaSpreneur Diamond. What do those things even mean?
Let's start with SaaSpreneur Diamond, probably. So that is, we partner with Go High Level, which is one of the leading CRM tool right now, at least. And we partner them, and we kind of like repackage them with some of our own features and market it as our own. So it's like our own brand. So Diamond is something that they just introduced, like I think last year. So it's for partners with over 1,000 plus softwares. So that means we have like 1,000 plus active users that are actively using High Level, which our software, automatic sales.
Yeah. So to recap, SaaSpreneur Diamond basically means that you have over 1,000 users paying you every single month to use a software that you've white labeled.
Yes.
Right? Okay. Awesome. And how many people are there that have achieved this SaaSpreneur Diamond?
I think, I don't know the exact number, but it's probably somewhere between 10 to 20.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Out of like 60,000
Probably.
that try.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, and then in the same year, you won something called a 2 Comma Club X. What is that?
So that is for using the software ClickFunnels to make and make more than like 10 million plus sales with the software itself.
Okay. So $10 million in sales through a single sales funnel.
Yes.
Okay, amazing. And so how are you able to usually, now I was going to say usually people get one or the other, but usually people don't get any. Okay. Okay. But somehow, some way you were able to get both, and then you're able to get it into a single year. So tell us about how you're able to blend those two softwares together, or the two different environments together.
So both of them are for software. So the 2 Comma Club X is actually for another software. So we had a software that is a bit more towards the B2B space, and it's geared towards helping employers and employees kind of like work together happily in a more transparent way. So that one that got us to the 2 Comma Club X, and then later after I exit that software. That's when we decided to start another software, which is the automatic sales, the white label version. So, and I think we kind of like have the experience of marketing the software from the prior venture. So, which is why like when we decided to white label, go high level, and just kind of like restart the whole new venture, it picks up much faster than before.
Yeah. So you're able to build off of your experience from one to be able to not easily, but to be able to more seamlessly launch the second one.
Slightly faster.
Slightly faster, yeah. So tell me about the businesses for each one. So if I understood you correctly, you exited the software, right? So you're no longer involved in that? Or
Yeah.
are you?
So back then, so we exited it. So the whole software was built from scratch, so out of a single idea. So and after a few years partnering, then we decided to exit, and because kind of like there's a lot of things going on, but ultimately it's also because we were getting tired of the more corporate-ish environment, big team, a lot of stress, and a lot of heavily involved in the whole day-to-day. So, and that kind of got us thinking, and by us, I mean like me and my brother. So we are partnering together in the whole venture. So we decided like we preferred the lifestyle of being like an agency or like even like a freelancer, because it just gives us much more freedom than a more like corporate-ish environment. So we exited it, enjoy for a while before we start getting bored again. It's like, what else can we do other than just like selling funnels, for example? So and at that time, because we are pretty involved in the whole marketing scene, so and we saw that high level is actually coming up and coming with a lot of like people making the shift, and also because the other software is kind of like taking a hit in a way. So then we decided, hey, that could be a good timing for us to do software again, even though we did say like maybe no more software. But then with the condition that we don't have to develop the software from scratch. So we actually just partner with them, and then they have a strong team. We actually watched them grow from like way before then, when they were really, really new, when they just first pivoted to the whole like agency world. So and then 4 or 5 years later, they have this white label program, which I think is very cool. So that's kind of like how we decided to make the move.
I think it's really interesting your choice to use ClickFunnels to sell a software that you built from scratch. I mean, I haven't heard of that. I mean, most software companies, they're going to have their own payment processor on the back end, something like that. But especially something that's not necessarily marketing related. I mean, it's HR related. So why did you decide to use ClickFunnels to process your payments and to sell this software?
I guess at that point, like there wasn't really a lot of like matured sales funnel software per se. And one of the funnel that we use a lot is webinar funnel. So having the opt-in page and then to the webinar and then to the checkout page, like all those things can be done pretty easy and seamlessly. We can easily do like split tests and stuff like that. So, and that has been really carrying the whole marketing aspect of the software.
Okay. And what did this software do exactly?
We call it a performance reward system. So in a way, most business owners struggle with retaining employees for a variety of reasons. But one of the big major reasons is because like the reward system isn't really transparent, at least from where I'm from. So it's like the employers would tell the employees that if you keep work hard this year, next year I'm going to give you a big fat check, bonus, whatsoever, right? And when it comes to the time of the bonus, the employer could say like, oh, we are not really making any money. So it creates this sort of like non-transparent environment and kind of like a cancer in the long run. And I wonder why they couldn't like retain people. So what we do is like we created a app and a system so that and we actually teach those business owners how to kind of like do their finances and account to figure out like, hey, this is actually how much that you can allocate to rewards your employees if you make as much profit, right? So, and the rewards would be tied to what the employees have to do. So assuming they completed their task or achieved certain, let's say, KPI, they unlock that reward. So then it becomes a very transparent environment instead of like just let's see what happens next year. So then it gives a, I guess you can say it's kind of like an instant gratification.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's
And
what
transparency.
Yes. So that's what we try to solve with that software.
Okay. And what was it called, by the way?
It's called VimiGo. So it stands for Vision, Mission, Go.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then, so you got really good at the marketing side of things from there, right? And then when you exited that, I think one thing you said is really interesting to me. You mentioned about how you didn't want to get bored of selling funnels, you know? So were you selling funnels, or how did you transition from there to like doing the marketing stuff?
So we were before the software. We were running the whole like design agency. So and then the software came kind of like like an opportunity to have something of our own. Because as a business owner, the biggest problem is like as an agency owner, the biggest problem is usually we are marketing for people. We're doing stuff and projects for other people, but not so much for ourselves in a way. So being able to partner together with the software and call that our own, so that kind of like got us moving into the software world. So then being in the software world for a while, we decided, hey, we love the agency freedom a little bit more, so we quit. But then decided, hey, we still want something of our own, which is why then we jump back into like the high level world.
So one thing I'm curious about is you mentioned that you were doing webinars for this one as well.
Yeah.
For the
HR software.
HR software. Okay, so tell me about your experience doing webinars, because as you know, I love webinars.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about your experience doing webinars.
So we do a lot of webinars. So, but the one thing that I would share, and I think I did share in some of the Facebook groups, is that when we sell software like this, we made it pretty much compulsory for the business owners to watch the webinar instead of doing like book a demo. So if you notice in the software world, mostly it's like either a free trial or book a demo.
Yeah.
But for us, we did it differently because doing demo over and over and over again isn't really scalable in a way.
Yeah.
So, and then a lot of time the face of the company is, personal brand, right? But if you're doing demo, it's not the personal brand that is doing the work. It's just some salespeople. So we made it compulsory for the business owners to watch the webinar. And one thing that we did differently is we made it paid. So you actually have to pay kind of like $30 to watch the webinar, which is kind of like educating you in terms of like making sense of your company finance and rewarding the company. So we are showing them the solution, and at the end of it, we show them that we have a system, a software that can solve this problem. So that's kind of the strategy.
So you charged for the webinar.
We charge for the webinar.
And then you had an offer at the end. Wow. So that's an interesting dynamic, because on one hand, something that I've struggled with my webinars is, I want them to have enough value to where they walk away and they don't think that, that this was a waste of my time. But at the same time, I don't want to give them too much value to where they think they can go on and do it on their own. But if I charge for the webinar, now I'm going to feel even more obligated to provide a lot of value. And the more value I provide, the less my sales go. So tell me about this dynamic of being able to charge and still being able to offer something on the back end.
I guess it has to do with a little bit of the confidence level and also the target market that we're serving. So, for example, this software is heavily geared towards the B2B market. So that means like it's not like B2C where you can just sell them a dream and then expect them to just kind of like figure it out. Because first, business owners, they don't have time. And second, for them to be interested, that means they have a problem and they want to solve it. But so how can you solve it for them? So instead of like making them jump through hoops of like booking a demo, but at the same time being not as committed into solving it, we kind of force them to at least pay a little bit to watch the webinar, explain the whole solution, and then at the end present them that there's a better solution, which is not just sheets, but it's actually a system, a software. So that's kind of what it is. And I think, like I mentioned, it's a B2B environment, so it's a high-ticket sales. So, and it also means that the software itself is not easy to use. Like I mentioned, that you have to understand your company finance, the profit and loss statement, all those kind of stuff before you can even set rewards. Otherwise, you're going to just go broke just by giving way too much money. So we need to make sure that they are really educated enough into the problem and the way the solution work to get their buy-in of the software itself.
Okay, so a few questions here. What was the title of the webinar? How did you frame the webinar? How did you get someone to pay you $30 to go watch a webinar?
So the title is more or less something like how to set performance reward for your company. So it's pretty much explaining like some kind of USP, because there's no one else in the world that is saying anything that is called performance reward. So and there's like OKR system, there's like the KPI system. So performance reward is kind of like something.
It's a new opportunity.
It's a new opportunity. So there are a lot of people that is doing like KPI, but those are more like metrics to give maybe clarity, but not so much on the rewards. for the stuff. So that's kind of like the term that we coined. So from the ads itself, it's like, so employers, you're facing this problem, you're facing the retention issue, blah, 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 because you don't really have a system. So join the webinar, register. It's like a 3-4 hours to walk you through how to set this performance reward system. So we actually break down the math of like, so how you can do it, like in terms of percentage that you can give in terms of commission, stuff like that. But at the end of it, again, like I said, the software would make all these things look a bit more manageable.
So how did you balance providing enough value but also setting up the sale? And I think I understand it from what you're saying is that you go through showing them the math, showing them how complex it is, and then showing them how your software just does it all for them.
Good question. I think it's a mix of like providing like really tangible stuff, a really tangible solution at the end. So it's not like the typical info industry funnel, which is information and then maybe faster information and then maybe a little bit more guided information, but they are all still information. But in this case, ours is like information and then you have something. It's like e-commerce product, right? You will actually receive something. So it feels, the value stack by its own is very different.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
because it's not something that they're able to do themselves.
Yeah.
Whereas like if you were teaching somebody how to, like I do, run ads, for example, then I can give them the information. At least they're able to now go ahead and do it by themselves. Whereas they can't go out and build their own software. I mean, maybe they could do a Google spreadsheet or something, but you're offering them something tangible that it's more than just information. It's something that is something that they can solve the problem.
Yep.
Yeah. So what about the offer? What did you offer on the webinar? So did you go straight to high ticket at that point?
Yeah. So it's straightforward. A single price is a 1-year annual subscription. So we don't even bother letting them try the monthly thing. So it's a straightforward annual thing. And then what you get along with the purchase is also kind of like a 3-day workshop. So again, to really walk you through how to figure out your business, making sense of the finance. Because at the end of the day, we realized that a lot of business owners, especially like the small business, medium business owners, they really have no idea what those are. They just know they have some money in the bank. That's it. So like really teaching them kind of like a business 101. So that's the purpose of the workshop. So at the end of it, they will already have very clear idea, roadmap, action plan on how to set up the whole software.
And what was the price point?
It's probably about like $5,000-6,000 US.
Wow. So you would close $5,000 or $6,000 deals
on the webinar.
On the webinar live.
Which is pre-recorded.
No! You just dropped the bomb.
Yeah.
Wow. Pre-recorded.
It's a pre-recorded webinar that is you have to pay some money.
Oh
and
my
at the end
goodness.
of it is a high ticket sales.
Amazing.
Almost completely automated.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people don't understand what that means, just at so many different levels. Doesn't understand how hard it is to get someone to show up to a webinar, how hard it is to close and make sales on a live webinar, how hard it is to get someone to pay for a webinar, how hard it is to get somebody to pay a high ticket on the webinar. So amazing. I'm
so many
impressed.
steps in the funnels itself.
Yeah. And you know what's interesting too is I'm curious about the operations behind your business. Like what's your team like as you were scaling this company?
Back then, the software company,
that one first, yeah.
it went as high as like 120 people headcount. So, and I was managing partly as the HR. So, and then later down the line, managing the product. So, but yeah, 120
Wow,
headcounts.
that is a lot. And the reason why that makes sense is because, I mean, you probably had a very deep knowledge of performance management in some way, and being able to manage projects in a way, because you had a good familiarity with OKRs, with KPIs, with performance rewards, all this kind of stuff. Did you implement some of this performance rewards in your company?
100%. So when we have to do what we preach, because otherwise, like we still have a few like salesperson to handle some direct customer inquiry after they watch, let's say, the webinar and still have some questions. But if we don't implement it ourselves, then it's not going to be congruent. So the salesperson is going to be like, so it's not congruent. So we do.
Yeah. Now, on the webinar, was it something that you were trying to let people think that it was live, or were they pretty understanding that it was not live?
We didn't make it a very kind of like we didn't say specifically that it is live, but we also never really have to say that it is not live, because when you have a real problem, because the way this is framed is not a new opportunity, it's more like a solution to a problem that you already have, compared to most of the info webinars, which is really like trying to sell you an opportunity. So we really do have to do that. So, and that means like the people that watches or decided to buy or to watch doesn't really care. They just care about whether this thing can save my company or not.
So since it was pretty much pre-recorded and automated, how often were you running the webinar?
I think it's pretty much every week, once or twice. I think we do let them choose.
Why not more, or why not less? I mean, because if it's just a recording, you could do it. I've seen some people do it 4 times a day or once a day, or So why did you do it once a week instead of?
We do want to give them, and I think that's a good question. And I understand we do want to give them the sense that that they have to set aside time to commit. And most of the time when, let's say, you hop on the registration page, the opt-in page, you are not in the right state of mind or the right environment to really watch a training.
Right now. Yeah.
So we want to make sure that they actually have that. So we kind of limit the time that it plays. For example, I think we did it maybe Tuesday and let's say Friday, and then 2:30 p.m. And maybe there's a slot that is 9 p.m. I kind of forgot because it's been a while, but it's set up that way.
How often did you do the webinar before you decided to have it play recorded?
We did a lot of live webinars throughout the pandemic. So, which is why it's kind of we didn't know what happens, what questions will be asked. So we nailed down the whole pitch flow, and then we just kind of pick the one that has the highest conversion, and then we just make it the recorded version.
Tell me more about that process of creating the webinar, and how many times did you iterate? Did you just have one, then change a couple slides, or did you just completely scrap it and try again and again, different models? Or what was it like to arrive to that one that was so good that you could just play it, automate it, and get sales from?
I think we pretty much the process is to iterate from the questions that you get from the real audiences. So you will like if you're doing the live, then you'll be able to be more aware like what questions people are asking, and so the next one you probably will try to handle it before the question even arise. So, and that's kind of like the process of how we iterate the webinar page. And then at one point, if there is a sense that's like, oh, I feel a little bit tired to do live, then it kind of is the time to think like whether you want to pick a version to just automate it, or you do the next one really seriously, really well, knowing that it's going to be pre-recorded, and then pre-recorded that one.
Interesting. Okay. Awesome. Anything else that you think that you would like to tell me about that one, about maybe some tips about webinars?
I think the biggest takeaway that I think the biggest mind bomb thing that most people take away from my experience in that is the paid one. Because a lot of people selling solutions like this wasn't aware that you can actually sell a paid webinar, paid training, and then it actually helps with the back-end conversion because you actually get much more committed people that just hops in, and not just because it's cheap, it's because that they know they have a problem. So in a way, when you have someone paying for the training, they know that they have a problem and they really are looking for the solution.
Yeah. So, and did you do free webinars at some point?
We do, but depending on the niche or the product.
Okay. So my question is then cost per registrant or cost per show. Are you breaking even, or are you losing money on the front end? Are you making money on the front end when you charge $30? Does it cost you $100 to get a $30 client? Does it cost you $10 to get a $30 client? Like, what's the break-even point on that front end registration offer?
In terms of like the front end offer, in terms of the like getting the people to join the training, it definitely isn't break even. It's definitely in the losing point because the cost of ads is always going to be going up. But anytime someone purchases the software, it's easily breaking even, and the funnel is really just that.
Yeah,
it's not a complicated funnel with a lot of like hidden upsells, order bumps, none of that.
So you don't have any. That's my second question. So after the $30, nothing.
Nothing, just the software plus the workshop, which is the whole bundle together.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
and you cannot just buy the software without the training because it doesn't make sense. We know that you couldn't implement it without really properly going through a training.
Yeah. Would people just pay on their credit card, or did you offer financing options? Or how does a lot of business owners don't have $5,000 or $6,000? Maybe they're not your type of business owner, or do you offer some kind of payment plans? Or how does somebody make a $5,000 decision after a 1 hour webinar?
It's like a 3-4 hours webinar.
Oh my!
Yeah.
Wow.
It's properly educating them with the whole thing.
Wow.
So it's pretty long. So and that is why no one would complain that they don't get a value out of it because it feels like a sales page. No, they really do get value out of it. So at the end of the day, the only decision that they have to make is whether I need a software for this or no. Maybe this isn't for me, but either way, like the software is there. Yeah.
Okay. Any other webinar tips? Like, I'm running lots of webinars, so anything you can give me to kind of other people to kind of improve our webinar conversions or improve anything about webinars?
I think like for webinars to work nowadays, is not just like debunking on what we call like the new opportunity or internal beliefs, but it's really also to provide values because people are getting immune to sales channel like that, obviously. So how do you really deliver on the promise that they were expecting when they register? So that's really the key. So especially with a paid webinar, you really got to deliver on that because otherwise you're going to get a lot of weird refunds.
Yeah. I've got to experiment with that. I don't know. I'm curious as to how that's going to work because I'm curious to try that for myself now. Because I've always felt like, just straight up from Russell Brunson, the more you teach, the worse your sales are, right? So I'm curious to see how that's going to work. But I think the key is, if you give them all the information and then it's just a simple decision at the end, do you want to do this yourself or do you want this amazing offer that's going to help you achieve that faster, better, or whatever, something. So that's interesting. I'm going to have to try that out.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see how it goes.
Yeah. So, okay, let's transition to phase 2. Go high level. So you decided that you wanted to start an agency, a powerful agency. You didn't want to just sell funnels. How did you launch your SaaS offer, your agency? It's not really a SaaS, right? How did you launch your offer at that point?
Yeah, so for the SaaS one, guess what? Webinars.
Webinars.
But this time it's framed a little bit differently. So this time it's like a 2-day workshop. So I mean, we kind of like debated whether we want to do like 3 days or 2 days. So you can call it challenge, you can call it virtual event, but we'll just kind of like call it like a 2-day workshop.
Yeah.
So and really educating on the missing puzzle, the solution, and then drop the software at the end. Same thing, why it worked for us is because while you explain all the solutions, they know that they need a software to implement. For example, if we talk about like AI and automation, it makes sense to have something at the end of it. So it doesn't come as a surprise. They know this is kind of like a software explanation, but before we hop into the software, we actually spend time to really explain like why you need automation, like what can you do with, like, let's say message automations, stuff like that. So and at the end, we drop our offer, which is like automatic sales. You can grab it for like this amount of money, and then you can do all those things. Yeah.
Was this a paid 2-day workshop?
No.
This one's free.
This is free.
Okay. Interesting. Why did you make that decision? Was this like you and your brother arguing over this, or was it a very clear decision?
Yeah. So there's not a strong argue. It's more like we were testing it to see if it works. So and we just decided to just try it out, and it worked.
The free version. You just tried the free first, and then it worked, and so you just never tried.
So then
to
we just run with it because don't change what works.
Yes.
So if at that point, and we were just launching, so obviously the more the merrier. So it's not so much about at that point. It's not so much about like quality control per se, like limiting the audience, because we know that high level itself can do all those things that we say. So there's not a single worry about like it's not being able to deliver. It's more like whether they buy into the solution or not.
Who did you learn the workshop method from? Do you have a mentor or somebody in the space that you were following and you learned a lot from?
Not particularly. I guess it's really a lot like observing like what people is doing. For example, maybe some people frame it as like challenge, 3 days challenge, 5 days virtual event. Not a lot of people frame it as a workshop.
Yes.
But it worked for us. So it's like a 2 days workshop to walk you through like how to do automation for your company. So again, it's not a like a dreamy kind of like new opportunity, but more like a problem solving thing. So you really do have to have a business to automate before this works for you. So in that sense, like the messaging is clear. We don't have to like force people through it. So and we wanted to have the numbers at the beginning, because for us like we are used to the launch method, especially with the webinar, because it does gives us this quick validation to whether kill the project or go on with it.
Yeah. Did you focus on a particular niche?
Still the small medium business owners, because we kind of like came out from that industry itself when we were doing the previous software. So we know their problem, and a lot of time their problem has to do with marketing as well. So leveraging high levels in terms of like doing all the marketing automation, we decided to go with that angle towards that audience.
But not a particular industry or
not
market.
Not so much, but more on the feature.
Right.
Focusing on the feature rather than the industry in that case.
Right, yeah, of automation.
Yep.
Wow, okay, yeah. That, Rob Bailey?
Yeah.
Yeah. I interviewed him recently, and, I was in a position where I'm like, everyone's telling me to niche, everyone's telling me to niche. And I have a pressure washing business. I have a cleaning business. I still do. And I just didn't want to be like the pressure washing guy. I didn't want to be the cleaning guy, you know? And he said, you know, there's multiple ways to niche down. You could niche down on an industry, or you can niche down on a problem or a type of solution.
Exactly.
So Rob, for example, niched down on database reactivation. That's his little niche that he's found. So I thought that was really interesting. And I think it's awesome for a lot of people that hear, you have to niche down, have to niche down. I mean, there's a lot of ways to be successful in business, right? And that's definitely proof. How much value did you provide for these people in this 2-day workshop? Or were you pre-framing the sale the entire time?
Definitely the pre-framing exists because ultimately we know that we want to sell the software. So every education that we do is going to have to make sense for the solution. And if we reverse engineer it, we know that the solution is marketing automation through our white label system. So then we need them to know what is automation, why do they need automation, how can AI plays into the automation world and help them save even more money and time. So that got to be really get out of the way before they will be willing to actually take out the credit card and buy the solution.
Yeah. And are you kind of just, is the software just kind of white labeled? I mean, sorry, is it like generic, or do you have a bunch of amazing snapshots already built out, or do you just kind of like sell the platform as it is?
We do have a few like templates, snapshots that goes along with it, but it wasn't really the main selling point because it also based on what we market, right? So what we market, they still get the full function of the software, pretty much everything, but when we sell, we focus a lot on the automation, especially the text messages automation. And in our world, over that side of the country, we are super heavy on WhatsApp. And I know in the States, it's not so much.
As big.
Yeah. So then we basically just nail down on like WhatsApp automation because there aren't a lot of robust WhatsApp solution. And even if they do, they are just WhatsApp solution. They don't have funnels, the calendars and everything going along with it. So all of those are good to have features that we don't focus so much on talking about, but they still get access to it. But they know clearly that when they come in, the first thing that they want to solve is getting their message, customer surveys, maybe sales inquiries, all those stuff automated through automation, like WhatsApp, maybe Messenger, Instagram, stuff like that.
How long were these workshops each day?
About 2 hours.
Oh, okay. Not too long.
Yeah, about 1.5 to 2 hours.
And did you see a pretty good retention from one day to the next?
Usually there will be a drop.
Yeah.
But at the same time, since this is obviously not a hidden sales pitch in a way that they know that this is going to be talking about software at some point. So the drop isn't like crazy huge compared to like maybe some other industries that we're involved in. So yeah, there's definitely going to be a drop every time in every situation. But there will be people who sign up on the first day. There will be people who decide to stay a bit longer and sign up on the second day.
Yeah. So do you provide, so you pitch on both days?
Yep.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So it's a kind of like a transparent way of selling. So they know this is software. Even from the webinar registration page itself, they know this is a software. So it's just that we don't immediately go into like, hey, this is how you use the funnels. This is how you use the automation. It's more like, this is what funnel is. This is what automation is. So educating them and then selling at the end of the day.
Amazing. One thing I'm always curious about is like the ratio of teaching to selling. At what point do you transition into your sales pitch?
Very good question. I guess I don't have a number in terms of the ratio, But if I have to put a number, I would say maybe like 7.3 or like a 8.2. So a lot of values, a lot of educations, and again, because the solution is not hidden, it's not like some kind of woo-woo new opportunity. So we really don't have to try to hide it.
Yeah.
So they are really just waiting for the price. Like, tell me how much is it? Tell me how much.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how can I start using it? When can I start using it?
Yeah.
So those would be the questions that precedes the webinar most of the time.
Yeah.
Instead of like, if we were doing like a course webinar, it would be like, can you cut to the chase? I don't want to know your story. Just tell me how much is the course. But in this case, it's like they know they have to.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's free. And they know that nothing's free in this world.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I watched a the Alex Hormozy book launch, the $100 million leads. And I studied that. And I noticed like he transitioned to the pitch at like 30 minutes. And then he spent the next hour and a half pitching. And it was just really incredible, like the different amount of times. And a lot of people, what they do when they try to do a webinar is they'll give 95% value, and then they spend, hey guys, by the way, if you guys want to buy this thing, it's like $100. Thanks guys, have a good night. And then they just say goodbye, and then they don't have any sales because of it. Yeah. So tell us more about sales. Like what are some of the things that you found that have helped you to to close live on a webinar? And I'll give you an example. A few things. Like one thing I found is is the energy that I bring to the particular webinar. So if for a while when I was doing webinars every single day, and I did 4 webinars a night, like live for like 2 or 3 months, and I was just not understanding why sometimes I would make sales, the exact same presentation, same amount of people, and yes, there's like a margin of error and sample size and all this kind of stuff, but why is it that one night I'll get 15 sales and the next night I'll get like 1 or 2 or even 0? And I noticed that one really big important factor is the energy that I bring into it, my mindset, how I'm feeling before I hit go on the camera, and that and then I learned to try to manipulate my mind state. Tony Robbins, I'm so excited to see Tony Robbins on Saturday, and how you can actually get into a particular state when you want to perform at your maximum capacity. And so, listening to the right music, having the right motions, yes, telling yourself yes, nodding your head, or like, going for a walk and looking at the sunshine, like different things can keep me in the right state. And then that would change the way that I performed and change the results. But any thing that helped you understand how to make more sales on the webinar?
So on a macro perspective, I would say it has a lot to do also with the kind of audience that you attract. So I know we talk about like maybe both webinars have like the same number of people, 100 people, 100 people, but these 2 different groups of people may be attracted to different things. Like maybe it's the different ads that bring in group A and then another set of ads. So then in that case, we have to be really careful about like the congruency, because like if they are attracted to, for example, automation, but all I do on a webinar is I keep talking about like funnels. I get sidetracked because someone asked about funnels, and I keep talking about that, and then I forgot that people want the automation, and then I talk too little about that. So that would turn people off, and then like not providing the right amount of value to that right group. So that's one thing that we notice in terms of like why certain days the sales drop. Of course, there's the more nuances in terms of the psychology. We definitely do observe that as well. But to us, we try to control things that can be analyzed, metrify whatsoever. So and we can really like just replicate. And mindset is something that could be harder to like replicate if we are doing live all the time, because some days you are really just having a bad day, and it's no amount of shouting can get you out of it. So, and if we're able to control, let's say, the pitch, the slides, in the right amount of ratio, and also catering just right to the people that you want to target. Based on our experience, the closing rate wouldn't be too far off. It wouldn't be like 15 versus 2.
How analytical did you get in trying to understand how to improve it? Like you heard of Mr. Beast, how he just obsessed over every second of the video and retention. How analytical were you in your approach?
So for webinars, the way we study is definitely the show up rate. So, but that is something that is a bit harder to control in general. So we just do it as much as we could, like sending reminders and stuff like that. So that's the first step of the webinar game, getting people to show up, not just the registrations. So most people would just care about like getting people to register as much as possible. But the nuances is also like how many % of these people actually show up? How can you maximize that? And beyond that, it's really like every 10 minutes or 15 minutes, we actually do the head count on like how many people is actually staying.
And do you track that?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Because like a lot of webinar software don't really allow you to do that. As in like there's no clear transparency.
A lot of it does. Like, I mean, almost everyone that I could think of, you can see the retention graph someplace in the back.
Yes, but then again, it's hard to compare like session to session. Versus like if we just kind of like do manually at the first few sessions. So from there you can see like when the drop off happens.
Yeah.
So and then we will actually note down like when I'm jotting down this number, what am I talking about? So if we compare today and let's say next week or last week, we know maybe we're saying something too soon or too fast. And maybe that's why people drop. So then we try to kind of like stay to either the time or like improve that particular moments.
Yeah. Is that something that your brother does or you do?
Good question. Actually, him that does a lot of he's usually the front end guy when it comes to selling.
Oh, he's doing the webinar.
Yes, he does a lot of webinars. I do a lot more one-on-one closing, like for clients. So like the agency side of clients, the one-on-one closing, those would be me. But my brother is very good with like one-to-many.
So he's doing the webinar and he's keeping track of the numbers?
No, so that would be us at the back end. So like Andy from my team here, and then some of my team. So depending on who's responsible on that day, they will do the numbers.
Oh, wow. Okay. What else is that person doing while you're giving the presentation?
Mostly keeping track of the chat. Like what kind of questions are people asking, because from there, like I said, this is where we can tell like, are we able to address those earlier? Because in sales, prevention is always better than cure. So if we're able to handle the objections way before it happens, the objections never exist. So then we try to do that as much as possible, and also trying to just monitor the environment. If it is a live environment, we want to monitor it and make sure there's no jerks in there, because those can affect some sales. Not a lot, but some.
Yeah. Do you do your presentation in English?
We used
to. Do you guys do it?
So it depends. We have both market, like English market and then the Chinese market. So we can speak. Like one good thing about Malaysian is we can speak a lot of language. Yeah.
Okay. So you're going kind of after both markets.
We used to do English.
Like you don't do English in Malaysia?
We do. So that's like 3-4 years ago, that was our English era. And then at one point we transitioned to Chinese because there's a lot of demands in Chinese. There are a lot of entrepreneurship stuff going on in the Chinese environment. So then we took a pivot, and then since then we do a lot of Chinese in terms of like the local stuff. For example, the software that we're talking about. But in terms of like the agency work, like my work, that conversion design agency is still mostly English because most of the clients are from States.
Okay. So talk to me about your offer. What are you selling?
Good question. Which part?
So on the webinar, what's the live on the webinar? Because you know, there's a lot of people think like a webinar is just like I'm going to sell in a webinar, but there's so many opportunities to sell in a webinar, like quote funnel, right? But so how about what are you selling on the webinar?
So for the software, like automatic sales, even though it's a white label, high level, we know that it gets super overwhelming. Super.
Yeah.
Like anyone who goes in there like without clear context of what they want to do, where they would need to go, is gonna get lost, and then there's a high chance that they're gonna churn. So then we introduced something called like virtual clinic. So every few days we have a tech support that opens up a Zoom, and any users can actually hop in and ask questions. So it's pretty much like on-demand thing. And that helps to solve a lot of the initial adopters, because like they come into the software, they don't know where to start. Like a lot of them are not very tech savvy. So in terms of the webinar offer, it's really just again handling the objections that may or may not arise when they purchase or after they purchase the software. So having this really helps with our sales, because it gives them the confidence that they can buy the software and have support how to do it. And when we're talking about support, we're not talking about like email support, because that's the worst. You draft a question that you may or may not understand to someone who may or may not understand. So we actually set up this live Q&A environment where they can actually hop in and get kind of like a one-on-one direct support on their problem.
Yeah.
So that is pretty much one of the biggest thing that we do in terms of the software offer. Otherwise, then of course there's a few like additional features, bonus stacks, but I would say this is a killer.
Do you offer like, education on how to grow your business with automation, or how to, is there like a lot of education involved with your offer?
We do have some like onboarding and like quick start, like again recapping maybe stuff that they have heard on the webinar, like why you need to have this kind of automation, why you need to use funnel. But we don't go super deep in that, mainly because it's not enough to cover every industry. So it's more general. And then obviously there's the support aspect, and then we have some like our own knowledge base as well on top of like what high level already has. So to be a bit more localized, I guess the keyword is localized support.
Okay. So then when they buy on the webinar, do you have an upsell after that?
No, absolutely zero.
Okay.
So just software.
Wow. Okay. So there's no like onboarding, like no onboarding or no, because you said you do some sales. So what are you selling?
Like I said, my sales, I was involved a lot on the agency side, which is like building landing pages, funnels for a lot of those. So, and then for the software, there's really nothing much that they need to buy. They really just need to do.
Yeah.
So if they do need people to help them implement, then we just kind of like recommend to some of our students or contractors, and then just hook them up.
Yeah. How do you feel about the difference in the business model between like, selling software, like selling funnels and then transitioning to selling software? As far as like you had 120 people for your software company, what's your team look like now? What's the business model look like now?
The team is really small right now. Like it's less than 20. The software and some of the part combined. So a few key hires would be the support, and then there will be one or two that really stand by on, like, for example, in-depth demo calls. Like they have gone through the workshop, they really, again, still have more questions, or they need to get a few of their key decision makers to hop in together as well. Then we have that kind of calls. So we try to keep the team really lean, because we at the end of the day we realize like not all businesses needs to be like have super huge team. So yeah.
And what do you feel like is some of the biggest impacts on keeping clients? Because it's one thing to get a client, it's another thing to keep a client. What are some of the things you do to keep your clients?
So the biggest thing that we do to keep clients, the first thing would be the live support. like the really live localized support. That's a killer.
Yeah.
So we can't help people who don't want to do anything, because there's a lot of people like that. They do get the impulse, they make the purchase, but at the end of the day decide that maybe later. So they churn, and that's fine, because you can't keep those kind of people if they don't even want to move. But so we just have to do our best to help those people that wants to move.
Yeah.
So down the line, we do have like marketing workshop just to help them get more in-depth knowledge and strategy to implement marketing in their system, because ultimately it's the marketing software.
Yeah. Okay. So, what are you kind of excited about doing next? Like, what's next for you? Do you have any big milestones? Any more awards you're trying to win?
I think that's probably it. So I mean, other than the 2 Comma Club C, which is a little bit far.
What is that one?
I think it starts from like 25 million.
25 million?
So you get 25 or 50 or like 75 or 100. So they kind of like mark the circle depending on which you hit. But I think like I'm pretty contented with
The X.
The X.
Yeah. After that, it's like, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So and sometimes, I mean, like throughout the experience, we know that to scale a business, there is the difference between like if you're chasing for, let's say, valuation, or you're chasing for cash flow. So if you're chasing for valuation, the game is very different.
Wow. I would assume that they'd be very similar.
No. So valuation, for example, in the VC world would be like keep growing, keep scaling. But a lot of time there's this graph that I forgot the name, but there's kind of like a tipping point. If you go past a certain thing, the difficulty is going to increase. For example, ads. Mathematically, people talk about like if you can make $2 out of $1 ad spend, why don't you spend 100,000 to make 200,000? But if anyone who runs ads and don't want to lie to you will tell you it's not possible to get the same amount of ratio.
Yeah.
And usually Facebook is very favorable when you are just starting. So if you're starting, if you're getting like 2x when you're starting, you're not going to get 2x if you're 100 or 200 or 100,000 times that one. So that's kind of like the thing that a lot of people don't tell you when they sell you the dream. But when you start doing the business, you know it's not like that. So that means like if you want cash flow, you got to keep to a certain amount of tipping point and balancing, for example, your team. So you don't just keep scaling and dumping money, and more sales means more headcounts and then more everything, but less a profit a lot of time because of all these factors that we just talked about. So really finding that balance so that we can get to enjoy life is the focus last year and this year as well. So we kind of figure out the rhythm and the right dynamic to hit, for example, to not go too stressful, to the stressful threshold. So this year we just kind of like gonna do more of what works instead of like experimenting of what might not work.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of the life balance, you just had a kid recently.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's that been like? It's been 4 years?
She's like almost 2 years old.
2 years old?
3.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I saw you said 1,000 days as a parent. I was, yeah.
Yes.
That'd be almost 3, right? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. What's that been like as an entrepreneur? Has that changed your view on business and on life in general?
100%. I think that's one of the key factor of when I said I decided to exit the software, because I was having very little time when she was born. So, and now I get to spend time with her practically almost every day, except when I'm traveling. But so that's a little bit of the risk or like the losses that I gotta take when I travel. But most of the time, I really can just work anytime, anywhere I want.
Yeah.
So, and I think that has been the focus for me and my brother for the past 1 or 2 years.
Awesome. All right, so we're getting kind of close to the end here. I'd like to ask a couple of questions towards the end. So if you could have a billboard in the middle of Times Square, right? Big billboard, everybody can see it. What message would you want people to see?
I guess if I want to be philosophical or just be inspiring, I would say to really find out what matters to you most in terms of like, I mean, I guess everyone has different wants based on the stage that they are at. Way before I have kids, I don't care. But the moment that I have a kid, the way I think change. Like so now I'm more aware of like what I'm saying yes to. I'm more prone to saying no to a lot of different opportunities, mainly because I know the opportunity cost that comes with it, the time cost, the sacrifice that I have to make. So again, like if I'm trying to be very philosophical and just inspiring, I would say to really, it's okay, but to find out the why. But from a business perspective, then depending on what I want to sell.
Maybe just a big picture of Jackson Yu.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I can be philosophical, but at the same time, I still love money. So
I love that. Okay. So the next one is a challenge. So I like to ask you to challenge people, right? Like what challenge would you present to listeners that might help them improve their lives or improve their business? What would you challenge listeners to do for them to improve their lives or improve their business?
I guess in the world that I'm involved in heavily right now, I'd say a lot of times people don't take enough action or they wait too long to take action. Me included, I'm guilty of that. So the challenge that I would like to really, or at least a belief that I want to instill is really just do it. Kind of.
Nike.
Yeah, I don't want to. I don't want to copy Nike.
I love it.
But it's really like just do it because there's a study that says they put two groups of people together. I think it's from Atomic Habits. I reread it recently. So one group of people are assigned to like just submit 100 different photographs.
Photo. Yeah,
ceramics.
I've heard
Okay.
both. I've heard photographs and ceramics. Yeah,
I
go
think
ahead, please.
Atomic Habits just kind of modified it a bit.
Yeah,
Maybe the
yeah.
original one was the ceramic. I'm not sure.
I've heard about that. Go ahead. Tell
Yeah.
us.
So like two groups of people. One is really trying to create a perfect single picture. The other one is just submit 100 pictures by the end of the duration. So and statistics shows that the one that submitted more quantity, more frequency, tends to have better results. Tends to have better projects. So the key here is that, and he said this something that I think is my biggest takeaway recently is that most people ask how long it's gonna take to, let's say, build a habit or make money, but he says that it's the frequency that matters. So just from that example itself is how often are we doing that same thing instead of like just thinking about it? Because if you're just thinking about it, you are not even winning yet.
Yeah.
But if you're doing something about it, at the very least, the chance is like 50-50. You either win or you don't, but there's the chance there. So I guess that's my biggest takeaway, and that's my biggest sharing. If I'm to challenge someone, is to what's the one thing that you want to do that you haven't, that you can actually start tomorrow without a care of like what's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that brought me to kind of where I was able to iterate a lot quicker. You know, like I read Russell Brunson said that if you do a webinar every week, then you'll have a 7-figure business in a year. But, you know, I didn't want to wait a year. So I started, instead of doing a webinar every week, I started doing a webinar every day. And I've done like 2 years worth of webinars in the last like 6 months. And so if you have to just iterate and you just do things more and more. And the more times you do something, you're going to get better at it.
Yes.
And if you just do it once, then your whole identity is tied to the outcome of that one thing. You know, I did a bad webinar. Oh, I'm terrible at webinars. You know, but if you do it every single night, you just kind of get detached almost from the result, and it's just the action. Like I don't care. Some nights I would have 0 sales. Okay, I'm still going to spend another $500 tomorrow, and I'm going to have another webinar tomorrow. You know, another opportunity to improve. So I love that, and I love the the opportunity to iterate and just keep going.
Yep.
So, this has been an awesome webinar. Podcast. Yeah, this has been great.
It is.
Yeah,
it
yeah.
is. Thank
I
you.
think it's really great for people that are interested in doing this stuff because of how tactical and in the weeds we got about this stuff. I mean, I love doing webinars. You have a ton of experience in webinars too. So if somebody actually has made it this far, you've probably got ridiculous amounts of value from it. So
Thank you.
yeah. Thank you so much for taking the time today and sharing with us and being so generous with your knowledge and your time. And you've got an amazing business. Congratulations to all your success. And I'm super glad to have met you. And thank you for coming through.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you. How can people get a hold of you? How can people get to know you?
I'm on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn a lot as well. The handle would be the Jackson U. I wasn't wearing my Jackson U shirt today, but yeah. So the Jackson U. That will be good enough. I don't have
Awesome.
anything to sell you.
Okay. All right. Not yet.
Not yet.
Hopefully
Maybe a
one,
landing page.
Hopefully one day. Okay. All right, Jax. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.